Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the slight technical delay there. My name is Mike Brown. I'm Director of Product Innovation with ATB Financial. ATB Financial is a regional bank within Western Canada. We're about 5,000 employees, 770,000 customers. We provide full service retail and commercial banking services, investment services and such. And we're actually owned by the province of Alberta. So we're one of two state-owned or government-owned banks within North America. And on the left is our story. It's our 94-word story, which basically is like our mission and our vision. I just want to bring it up, not for you to read the whole thing. You're welcome to some time. But there's two things in here I want to highlight. One is the greater good of all Albertans, and because banking can create happiness is one thing. And the second is that ATB will always be more than a bank. So even though our kind of core services are as a bank, that message regarding happiness for Albertans is, for me, something I use as justification for driving the issue around self-sovereign identity, because I do believe that self-sovereign identity can lead to significant impacts for consumers. Cancel a little message. Just to give you a bit of background, besides the identity work that I'm going to talk about today, I lead all of the blockchain work that we do at ATB, and I kind of break it into these 5 categories. The first is interbanking operations, so how can we work with other banks using blockchain, enterprise solutions, so non-banking solutions, digital identity, which we'll talk about more, cryptocurrencies, and then payment solutions. And just from some of the partners we work with or have worked with, and some of the technologies that we're using. So in the interbanking operations space, we tested Ripple about 2.5 years ago, actually sent $1,000 to Germany. Had it completed in 10 seconds. In the enterprise side, we built a Hyperledger Fabric-based proof of concept for oil and gas contracts. So we built it for the reconciliation and settlement of oil and gas contracts. Then I'll skip over the identity piece for a second. In the cryptocurrency space, we're one of the first banks in North America that's actively banking cryptocurrency businesses. So we're actually providing business banking services for exchanges, mining operations, and other type businesses of that type. And finally, the last one on the right, payment services. So what we're doing here is we're running nodes on these blockchain networks where we're reading payment obligations, and then we're triggering offline traditional payments, currently using EFTs, and then writing back on the blockchain that these payments have taken place. 2 of the companies, Rewatt Power and Grain Discovery, are actually here in the room today, and they're both running Hyperledger Fabric-based networks. So again, our role is running a node on their network, seeing the payment obligations, going offline, moving the money, and then writing that back on the blockchain. In the middle of the identity work, we've been working in this space for over 1.5 years now, doing work with Evernym, IBM, Sovereign Foundation, and Telus is a Canadian telco, and then we're obviously working with Hyperledger Indy for this work. So why do we care about identity? What's our kind of basic premise here is that we want to give consumers back control over their identity. Obviously, in the last decade or two, consumers have lost control. They've given up control for convenience, and now we're trying to find ways in which we can give them control back. And we think that's going to lead to a lot of innovation and new solutions that will emerge from that. ATB is in a bit of a unique position where, because we only operate within one specific region, Alberta, within Canada, we think we can actually drive the economy there for adoption of self-sovereign identity. So what we're doing is we're using our role within the province as a regional bank, then working with others in the province to help drive the adoption. We think we can actually move very aggressively in this space and be years ahead of other jurisdictions like this in adopting self-sovereign identity for consumers. So the goal is to bring self-sovereign identity to all Albertans. So ATB doesn't bank all Albertans. We're a competitive bank with all the other banks. In Canada, there's about 5 major banks, and we're about number 8 so far as the size of banks within Canada. But that's actually reasonably large when you kind of compare then to the US. So if you actually look at Canada and the US, we're about number 28. So because in the US there's much fragmentation, there's only 20 banks in the US that are actually bigger than ATB. So just to give you some scale there. So we think that we can actually position Alberta as a whole to be a leader in SSI, and we think that's going to be a major competitive advantage. So what I want to do is walk through quickly a few projects that we've done, and the first one was with Telus. So again, this telecommunications company, we worked with Telus about a year ago doing this project, and basically we issued on the ledger the relationship between ATB and a customer, and then have that customer share that with Telus. This was all command line based stuff. There's not any nice video to show you about that experience, but it really was writing the ledger, creating the schemas, and then having that credential shared. And then we also had Telus provide a proof of or a credential regarding change of address. So again, being a telco, they've got physical knowledge of a change of address, and then we had that consumer share that back with ATB. So just kind of working through the flow of what that would look like, and that was really the first opportunity for us to, work with the, the sovereign and the Hyperledger base to kind of understand what that flow would look like, the role of the credentials, the role of the schemas, and how that would work. So then earlier this year, back in the late spring, early summer, we embarked on a project with IBM and Workday and Evernym. And basically in this case, what we were looking at was account opening. So if somebody wanted to open up a bank account with ATB, so what we did here is they got an employment credential, so proof of employment. So in this case, we had an IBM employee logging onto their Workday portal. So Workday is the company that provides the portal, the employment portal. So in that case, it proved an interesting scenario of the controller processor. So IBM was a controller, but Workday was acting on their behalf through the portal as a processor for that credential. And then we made a fake DMV to issue a driver's license, took those two credentials, and then our consumer was then sharing with ATB to go through the account opening process. Subsequent to that, we then issued back to the consumer their bank account details. We actually gave them a credential saying, here's your bank account. Now you have this and you can use that for payroll deposits or other things. But we also gave them the ability to log in. So we actually made the workflow work so you could actually put in your account number on the login screen, and it would push a notification to your Evernym Connect.me wallet saying, is this you and do you want to log in? And you would confirm that in the wallet. And that would push back authority to log in back to the website. So that was the flow that we did with the IBM Workday project. So again, it's quite useful demonstrating a few key points like the controller processor piece and then the login without a password piece. Now what we're embarking on is more targeted on the Alberta ecosystem. So what we're looking at here is how do we actually, again, the chicken and egg piece. We can't do this by ourselves. If ATB just went out and issued bank account credentials to all of our customers, that wouldn't be very useful for them. So what we're doing is actually creating an ecosystem within Alberta. And so we ran 2 workshops last week. We had 3 levels of government, so municipal, provincial, and federal government, utilities, telcos, post-secondary institutions like universities, and insurance companies present in this workshop, and basically work through with them what self-sovereign identity was and how they could play a role with us. Because what we want to do is get to the point where we can launch later next year with approximately 10 or a dozen organizations who are able to issue and consume credentials. So we've already gone through, identified about 7 or 8 flows for each of these organizations, and we've done the schema definitions, and now we've actually built a demo, which I won't have time to show you today, but I've got on my computer if anybody wants to see it. We built a flow that took like a 23-year-old receiving her university credential from the university website, using that to go to LinkedIn and actually create a LinkedIn profile that consumed the credential as a verified education. And then we issued the government-issued ID to this person. So we actually went through all the flow of this individual receiving a number of credentials and then providing those to receive services like opening up new accounts. Right now, from that workshop last week of 15 organizations, 10 agreed to move forward with us, including the provincial government. So the provincial government's agreed to issue a digital ID to the sovereign network with us on this. So we're excited about that. And the last piece I'll mention is what we're calling wallet study. So critical to, if we do this and can make this all work, a consumer needs to have an app, a digital wallet that they're able to receive and manage these credentials in. And that's obviously a bit of a moving target. So what we did was undertook a wallet study to identify what are the key things that need to be in a wallet feature-wise, what do we need for an MVP, and what do we need for features that need to come shortly after that. So that wallet study is going to be done first week of January, and we're going to publish that out to the community so that everybody, we think it's going to be of value, and we want to help move the community forward around the wallet. So those are all the things we're doing specifically around identity and the work we're doing with the Sovereign Foundation and Hyperledger Indy. So that's all I had. Hopefully I didn't go too fast for anybody, but just wanted to get through that. So any questions about what we're up to, or all good? We're excited. So great. Thank you very much.